right. I think it's time to get started. Welcome to Refresh Friday. Good Friday, Alex. You're looking mighty fine with your chest hair just sort of peeking out from amongst your shirt there.
Yeah, a little taco.
Yeah, they make trimmers for that. Down
Target. Wouldn't
Target.
you know?
So what you don't know about your salesperson can't hurt you, or can it? We're going to find out today. But before we do that, we're going to hit our sponsors. We've got a sponsor today, Honker. I'll jump over to the screen share real quick. I wish there was a quicker way to do this. Be sure I've got the right one up. So Honker, catchy name, and they've brought something pretty different to the market, actually. They are the cheapest and easiest way for consumers to lease a car on planet Earth. At least that's their slogan. The shopper can go through a 1, 2, 3 process, and in return, can become a customer of your dealership. And what the dealership doesn't want to increase, what dealership doesn't want to increase your lease penetration. Exactly. So, but Honker doesn't provide a lead. What they do provide is an actual customer for your dealership. For more information, visit DealerRefresh. We've got some ads over there. If you click on the ad, it'll take you to a page with a little bit more information. You can go and fill out the information on the form here. And Mr. Patrick over there will definitely get back in contact with you. Also, the rest of our sponsors, just a quick thank you for them. AutoHook.
Including AutoHook, yeah.
Yeah, Auto Star, Call Review Cars, the whole list goes on. So thank you for that. So we've got a lot of tools in our industry for measuring performance across marketing, conversion on our dealership websites, market share. But what about our salespeople? Yeah, there are some ways out there we can measure the performance of our sales staff. Close rates, opportunities to close. But let's be real, most of the time, if they're selling cars and putting chips on the board, we typically don't look at their percentages. We just keep on going. But is that really a good idea? Is there a different side to the story? That's what we're going to explore today. Today we have a guest that I've personally known for quite some time now. We've worked through 2 different stints, some fun times, and he shows that with some great data, what you don't know about your salespeople can hurt you. So welcome aboard, David Metter.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, so you're going to tell us how ignorance isn't bliss.
And for our viewers out there, David, why don't you just give us a little bit of background, your history in the world of automotive?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I started out like most of us selling cars, and had the fortune of being a good car salesperson for about 7 years, and then made the mistake and took a promotion into management and sales management, and eventually a GM of a dealership, which brings on its own challenges, and was again fortunate to be right place at the right time, and joined a startup in the CRM space back in 2000 with Autobase, and was there for 4 years, and then had probably what was the opportunity of a lifetime to jump back into the operations side, and joined Mile One, and eventually became their chief marketing officer. And that's where you and I obviously had a chance to work together for some years, and had some fun, made some noise, and through I think, again, good timing, we had our ducks in a row when the market tanked a bit, and made a name for ourselves, and had the dealerships that we served fairly aligned during that time. And during that time, we built what is now AutoHook, and took that to market in 2011, and in 2015 sold that to Urban Science, and now here we are. So like my whole life has been in automotive, and certainly have had a lot of fun.
I remember a story back in the Mile One days. I think it was,
Oh no.
I think we dressed up for Halloween. I didn't dress up.
I didn't either.
And I thought that you did. I thought you dressed up like Charlie Brown.
Yeah, that was, I think it was just the morning where you didn't have your coffee. Like, you know.
You had like this brown sweater going on. I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah, that was before I was introduced to Trunk Club. So I probably picked out my own clothes back then and didn't really know what the heck I was doing.
Are you still using them?
No, I actually kept that blazer and that it was like a mock turtleneck, if you remember. It was like orange, burnt orange.
Yeah.
I kept it. I framed it up.
I thought you were dressing up, didn't you?
Yeah, I don't know what I was.
You gave me a look though. You gave me a look that just like pierced straight through me. I was like, ooh.
Because we were sitting in a meeting that had everyone in our marketing team and training team and IT, I think. Like we had like a bunch of people. And everybody was like, we had some pretty interesting characters, just like any time in the car business. And that's probably somebody from Mile One calling saying,
Yeah,
hey,
exactly.
remember that.
Charlie Brown.
Yeah.
Where are you?
But he did, man. Everybody's talking about how cool the costumes were of all the people who we had, because we had a lot of interesting, creative people there. And dude looks at me, he just turns, and we're always sitting next to each other for some reason. And he just looks at me and he goes, yeah, nice, costume. It was something like it, just so so Jeff Kirshner, and just played it off. And everybody just looked and then started laughing because, he clearly called me out. So
I didn't mean it.
It wasn't the only time. You used to do all kinds of stuff in those meetings. It was good days, man. I know. We look back at it, they were hilarious.
No doubt.
Yep.
So you're here today, giving us some insight on, where a dealership might think that, their best salesperson is out there just selling a ton of cars, putting a lot of chips on the board. And traditionally we're like, oh, that's our best salesperson. But you've got some additional insight that maybe proves that they're not actually your best salesperson.
Well, can we, like traditionally the best salesperson usually is kind of a morale killer too, isn't he? Might call him a lot lizard. What are some other terms we've thrown at these guys throughout the years? Are there?
I can't say them on camera.
Right.
I try to keep it clean, unlike you, Alex.
We did have a guy we called Biff. His name was not Biff, not even close to it, but you can see what BIF stands for, and big ignorant something. That was the one I first sold against. But there's one in every store, right?
Yeah, we had this lady. Her name was Sue Palka. I'll never forget her name. She was a mess.
Was she furry?
She's
like alpaca?
What's that?
It just sounds like it's just reminded me of alpaca. Like,
God, she stirred up. They hired her. I was shaking my head the whole time, and she stirred up. She riled up the whole sales floor. So much so they ended up having to fire her. Maybe I shouldn't say it. I don't know if she's still out there.
Well, you named her now.
If she is. I know she's not watching this.
Yeah, she's gonna walk away from the screen and go,
Yeah.
Yeah, I just can't believe what's going on in the industry. And all of a sudden, she'll just start pitting everybody. We had a guy. He was seriously. He's probably the most talented salesperson I ever met. And I was managing this guy. Amazing. Never really took a TO, but what he would do, he would pit everybody on the showroom floor. And he'd walk up to him, and he'd say, he'd just walk up to him and he'd start shaking his head. Man, I'm pitted. I'm so pitted. And then he'd go into whatever rant of the day it was. And then all of a sudden I'd have these, salespeople walking up to the tower in my office, and they're like, man, did you, and they'd start going on. and I'd see Pat Barino, his name is Pat Barino. He'd walk through the showroom floor and he'd go and get the customer that he just saw pull in. That's why he would do it. He would distract them. They would come in and be upset, and then he'd go get the customer and go sell them a car. It was amazing. So like, he just did it all the time. And every salesperson fell for it every single time, even though they'd fallen for it the day before. It was just crazy.
It's the most forgettable breed, the salespeople. But, you know, when the lot lizards leave, what kind of lift in sales does the dealership usually see? Does it? Does everybody kind of step up their game a bit? And now we've got an extra 20 cars on the books that we didn't usually average?
Yeah, we've seen that. I've certainly seen that when we've had salespeople who are not good for the morale of the team, and then they go, and the last thing they say is they're walking out the door, I sold 20 cars. You'll never replace me. And I remember one time I had a reaction because, you know, I'm usually calm, cool, and collected all the time. I yelled across the showroom. I'm like, you're right. We don't have one guy who will sell 20 cars, but we have 8 people who will sell an additional 5 cars a month, and you won't be missed. And I probably had some choice words in there as well, but that was back in the early days.
Well justified choice words, I'm sure.
Probably. Yeah, we'll say they were. Sure.
Stick to that story.
Yep.
So, David, you've written an article here that is definitely a different perspective on things. Maybe something we've all known, but we've never really been able to scientifically prove.
Yeah, I think it really probably started back in the days of Mile One, because well before we had the data that we have now, we had the ability to look at all of our opportunities, whether they were internet leads, phone calls, just ups on the showroom floor, and you could do sales match on those. You can do them at your store level, or you could use registration data. And we used to do that, if you remember, Jeff.
Oh yeah. Leads. I thought you were going down the path of lead scoring here.
Well, we can keep that for later in the conversation. Right. Start pouring shots or something. But I think that there were 2 problems with what we were doing at the time. Number one, the data was really old. It was 45 days old. So
yeah, hard to act on it.
Yeah, but at the time, it was all we had. And then the other thing is you couldn't really break it. You could look and see what you were losing from the opportunity. So we knew how many cars we sold. So let's say we sell, 10,000 cars in a month, 20,000 cars in a month. And we'd see that we lost another 20,000 cars, 30,000 cars of the opportunities. And we knew what they bought. We just didn't know where they bought, and and from the salesperson pool who touched them before we lost them to another dealership. So it was good, but it wasn't great. And what's been interesting over the last couple of years, since the acquisition from Urban Science, there's so much opportunity to look at data a different way than I've ever seen before. And one of them is at the salesperson level. And so instead of just looking one-dimensionally like we've done when we look in CRM, or if you take sales match out of DMS, or even if you take some other sales match information, you see Jeff has 100 opportunities and sells 20 cars, and you think, man, he's killing it. Like, that's how we rate him.
Yeah, it's a decent closing ratio.
Right. And then we see Alex that has 60 opportunities and sells 10 cars. And we go, that's not bad. And then we see me, I sell 8 cars and 50 opportunities. So that's how we get judged, right? Kind of in that one-dimensional view.
Yeah, for sure.
But when you start layering in some of this cool competitive information, you start seeing, let's say with Jeff and the 100 opportunities, he sold 20 cars. all of a sudden we have this three-dimensional view, and we see that there's another 30 customers that left the interaction with Jeff and went and bought cars somewhere else. Let's say 20 of them bought the same type of car that we all three sell. Let's say we sell at a Honda dealership, and 20 of those 30 bought a Honda somewhere else. And then 10 bought, let's say Toyotas, just to make it simple. And so if I use that logic with Jeff, and then I, progress with Alex, because, he sold 15 cars, but only 5 customers left Alex and bought Honda somewhere else. And with me, maybe 3 customers bought somewhere else. Who's the best salesperson in that deal?
Well, me.
Of course, you.
I thought I was.
But it opens up the conversation, right? Because everybody thinks you are.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And in every scenario, if we were to
have more chips on the board, I'm the best salesperson.
You got it.
Doesn't matter.
But what you doesn't know is, go ahead.
No, I've got your article pulled up, and you go through that with this example, actually.
Yeah. Well, that's a great visual, because it's funny because I can talk through it, but when I have a conversation with a dealer or with a group of dealers and they see this, it's like, I've never been in a room where you've got, let's say, 20 dealers and they're all silent. They put their phones down. We're talking dealer principals.
Mm-hmm.
They literally stop what they're doing and they start looking at that because it's something they've really never seen before. And so all of a sudden you see, let's say where you've got, on the second line where you think you have a great salesperson, but when his defections are, almost pacing what he sold, you can see in the second one right there.
Yeah.
Like, holy crap, that light gray means they bought the same kind of car.
Yeah.
Somewhere else.
Yeah, he's losing deals all day long.
Yep. Well, and then if you match up the in make and then out of make, he's basically losing way more than he's winning. And that was really the premise of my article.
And I shouldn't say losing deals. I correct myself. Basically just blowing opportunities.
Yep. Yeah. It's like
these people are out there buying somewhere else.
Yep.
And so where's this data coming from?
And so it's coming from Urban Science, and it's coming from this shared opportunity where we're able to match up, not just, let's say in this example of let's say Honda, but we can see kind of across the board with competitive makes. And we're not saying we're never going to share that Alex bought a car from a competitor. It's just showing the overall statistics so that you can see the true success and failure at that dealership. So for years, we've thought CRM data is great, and it is. It is. It's just, it's not three-dimensional in the sense where you can start layering in this really true. This gives you your true batting average, your true effectiveness as a salesperson.
True all-star.
Yep. Yeah. So, in the examples that I gave for the 3 of us, let's say that, because I only had so many opportunities, I didn't have the 100 like you did. I only had 50. Mm-hmm. And I sold 8 cars and only 3 defected. That goes into the overall methodology of how effective they are. It'd be like, in baseball, where you've got a 300 hitter, but he only gets 100 at bats. He's not getting regular daily playing time. It's like, this guy is a 300 hitter. He should get more opportunities up at the plate. And this salesperson is probably in a position where they should get a lot more opportunities because their batting average probably won't change. It'll probably stay the same.
Well, I'll challenge that a little bit. Maybe it's because if they don't have as many opportunities, they're working those opportunities longer. They're concentrated more on those typical opportunities. Whereas if you got the other person, your top salesperson, maybe they're going through 100 customers and they're selling more cars. But if you start giving that other salesperson more opportunities, he might not have the time to give, as much effort in order to get that close.
Yeah, and that's a great thing about this is that you can test that. So
Yeah,
instead of just going, from 50 to, it'd be like, think about if we were back in the dealership together, we could just pull levers. And let's say, you take me from 50 to 60 opportunities and see if that batting average stays the same. And if it goes down, then your theory is right.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, that means that something else, there's another variable there. And, but the data allows you to kind of figure that out.
So the data is coming from where again, David?
It actually comes from the manufacturers, which have given Urban Science the approval to use it in these scenarios where it's helping on behalf of the dealership or the manufacturer. Doesn't share personal identifiable information, just gives us the opportunity to really help benefit the dealer in performance.
Okay. And so if, a dealer who might want to dive into this outside of AutoHook, God forbid, and if they were to say maybe be a little more stricter, a little better at managing salespeople and how they update their lost opportunities in the CRM, you could sort of start to get a feel for some of this, right? Well, maybe you had a BDC that was calling behind salespeople and.
Yeah, there are manual processes for sure in order to do that. And then, you can kind of suppress the records as you make calls and find out that they're out of market. So a lot of things that hardworking people have done in the past.
Well, not nearly as good as having OEM provided data. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and too, you're not going to get you'll get the deflection, but not based on make.
Not necessarily. And you're dealing with
even more work. Oh, what did you buy?
Yeah, and you're taking the word of surveys. I remember back in the day that there were third-party website companies. If you remember, that's how they proved attribution to us, is that they would do these surveys, and the surveys could maybe not be super accurate, but the data behind the performance that we were just talking about is it's pretty accurate.
So after you've shown some of this, have any dealers gone to up rotations or anything along those lines to help out?
Yeah, actually what you see is they start conditioning different salespeople, or I'll tell you what they start doing. They start looking at where those opportunities were. So to Jeff's point, maybe just because they get more, they might not be selling more, or they could be selling more. But then they start digging into the quality, because that's another element that this data provides. You start looking at lead providers and the performance of that, and then you can layer that on top of salesperson. And then maybe you even take geography. That's something we always looked at, back in our days together at Mile One. We'd look at geography, and then you layer that on top of salesperson and lead, and so you can get really pretty cool about this and figure out, it becomes very prescriptive, if I could say the word.
So on that topic, or on that train of thought, Rick Buffkin asks a great question, or maybe makes a great point. And I think it might go hand in hand. I'm sorry, I might take this on a little bit of a tangent, but hand in hand with a conversation we had with who we call DR Truth, John Berna. John does some sales forecasting, and when he goes for a unit count, he's pretty accurate. But where his forecasting starts to fall down is when it's breaking apart new and used.
Right.
And his problem there is just, who's on the desk the most? Is it the used car manager more than the new car manager, and so forth and so on?
Yep.
So Rick is asking a question here about how can you layer on the managers on this data, and maybe look at whether it's a manager salesperson kind of conflict, or they work better together, or something along those lines.
Yeah, that's a great point. Quite frankly, in all of our user groups, hasn't been brought up. So I will make sure to take note of that and see if there's any way for us to dissect within the CRM based on, TO manager, and see if there's performance breakdown there. That's a great point.
Yeah, it might be better to get some of that information out of like a worker quote in the DMS or whatever pencil tool they're using, because typically those auto assignments in the CRM just throw a manager on there and they never change it.
Yeah, good call.
Well, first manager in, yeah.
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 I mean, a good CRM is probably going to at least show who desk the deal when the customer comes in.
Assuming they're using the desking portion of the CRM, sure.
Well, yeah, true. Gosh, how many dealers are using a desking tool that is not part of the CRM?
A lot.
I know. That scares me.
Probably most.
Yeah, probably more than what I know.
Yeah. Yeah, it might. Yeah, that's a whole other topic. Another day.
Another day.
We could talk about geo trackers.
Oh, good.
Well, GeoStorm, right? Jeff is apparently an expert in geos. If anybody ever was wondering.
I knew the Zuzu line, which turned into Geo. So, but I'm not a Geo expert. But I did
back that up. The Isuzu Impulse, right?
Yeah, that's right.
It's okay, because most of the people on today probably don't even know that Isuzu turned into Geo.
Probably not.
Well, just the car. The trucks didn't.
That's true.
The trucks turned into General Motors things. Was that a Cinder and anyway?
All right. Well, you know more than me. Quit picking on me.
It's just because I sold them during that time.
Wow, you started at a Isuzu dealer?
Isuzu, Hyundai. Actually, it was Hyundai, Isuzu, Volkswagen, and we called the store HIV for short. In the inside ADP, that was the little store call sign.
What year was that?
Oh God, this was. I think the store was designated that in like the 80s or something. So
I mean, that's cutting your teeth.
Finally changed it like 20 years later.
That's cutting your teeth.
Wow. Yeah.
There's another Facebook question. I think we sort of answered this. And this guy posted this whenever I posted your article up on our Facebook page. And he goes, any measurement that isn't based on metal out the door and dollars in the bottom line is irrelevant to our business. A 10-car guy that closes 10 out of 10 ups is not better or is not a better asset than the guy that closes 50 out of 100.
Hey, speaking of the 80s, oh, sorry.
It's not a question. I just thought it was, after everything that we've been talking about, and I'm not even sure where this guy gets his logic from.
So is it in all caps?
No, it's not.
Okay,
it should be though. I mean, yeah, he came right off the DMS onto.
It's like Barry Lurie. he used to type in all caps every message.
All of his emails were like all caps.
Yep, they all came because he just logged out of Reynolds.
Really?
That or he was the only one ever to use the email client in Reynolds.
Ooh.
Oh goodness.
How about that?
Good one, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Forgot that existed.
So did everybody else. So did Reynolds.
Right. Probably still there.
I bet.
Yep. Oh man. So where do we go from here, guys? We go from Geo to Isuzu to HIV to
Reynolds and Reynolds email.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, you can't have Reynolds without HIV. Oh, sorry. All right.
We're all gonna get letters.
Yeah, probably.
Cease and desist
wouldn't be the first.
No, it wouldn't be.
I don't know. We've never gotten one from Reynolds.
Oh yeah,
first. Oh really?
No, yeah. I'm the one that got all the cease and desist letters from your topics, from your post on the blog. I'm the one that got all the cease and desist.
You're welcome.
Yeah, especially your digital dealer April Fool's joke. Digital Dealer has canceled all operations. It will not be hosting a show or conference this year.
I assume that was when Roscoe still had it.
Of course. That's why we were banned from Digital
That's
Dealer.
right. That's right.
I couldn't even go. I tried to get in. He was like, "No, you're not coming in." Like,
that was a good year. Let's see. We had Auto Trader battles. We had Roscoe and Larry Prince.
Larry?
Yeah. Can't forget Larry.
Yeah, not. But what was his last name?
Are you
Oh,
talking
no, not Larry Prince. Larry
Bruce, my favorite.
Larry Bruce.
Yeah,
Yes.
my favorite person in the whole entire world.
Shout out to Larry Bruce. Never good.
Where is the Bruce now?
He's at Reynolds. Reynolds using their email.
Oh. In full caps.
Full caps.
We got an old video of Larry somewhere.
No, I'm not bringing that up from
No.
you guys. I'm not.
Can
Unless you have it.
Yeah, just bring this up in a session that I'm not included in.
All right.
Leave it for, Steve Stauning's good for that.
Oh yeah,
Very true.
absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
Maybe we could have Steve and the Bruce on.
Oh, I pay for that.
Yeah, maybe we can get Matt Watson to make a comeback for that too.
Oh no, please not. Please not. That was a headache. Headaches. We've gotten away from that craziness, sort of.
So taking this back to less of memory lane and maybe more some actionable stuff, we did bring up lead scoring for a minute there at the beginning.
Yeah, you hesitated on that.
Oh, no, I mean, I've always felt like I'm on the stage by myself when we talk about lead scoring.
Totally not.
I gotta tell you, in my time at dealer.com, we got really close to Polk and looked at doing a lot with that, and I'm a huge believer in it now.
Yeah,
I wasn't totally on board with it when we were competitors, David, but
oh, you would be. Oh, you didn't like it at all.
no.
That and something else. I'll never forget. Alex was so pissed whenever we rolled out reputation management down in Virginia Beach. And Alex is like, seriously, you're going to make this into a big thing? Because remember, I had to go down there and train all the dealerships on how to get reviews. Yes. And he's like, you asshole.
No, I had that part of the market cornered. Now I was going to have some competition.
Some more work.
Yeah, that was, you talk about things ahead of their time. Lead scoring falls into that. Dealership reputation and the way that probably both of our groups that we represented attacked that. It was amazing. It's funny, they talk about, having sales people have their own, reviews. And that was something that you were doing in our group back in like 06 or something like that, 07.
Well, I remember having the conversation with Chip where, because they didn't have, prior to that, they didn't have the actual review page for an individual salesperson or service rep. And then after a couple conversations, that was rolled out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about that?
I know. Good time.
All things awesome come back to you.
No, definitely not.
There's usually, though, I will, to give Dealer Refresh a little shout out, but there's usually some sort of archived article or something along those lines, where some new ideas come out.
Yep.
You just got to roll the clock back a few years and you'll find it on Dealer Refresh.
I bet you that would be fun to go back and just review things in 06, 07, 08, 09 and see how they're, finally coming to fruition.
Well, we Alex does a was it the Tuesday?
Bump It Tuesday.
Bump It Tuesday. So we'll go back through the forums and find an old conversation that hasn't been brought up in years, and he'll bump it. Some things have changed. One of the ones that we were talking about last week, I think you bumped, was have the way we measure things. Has that changed? The way we measure, our internet lead scoring or internet lead percentages, our conversion, lead to sale, show to close. But, you know, it's ironic that here we are talking about a different measurement. So we should probably go back into that thread and add this measurement.
Yep.
That's a great idea.
There you go.
Alex, you can do that.
Sure. You know what's funny?
No, because then it won't get done. I'll do it.
Well, good.
I'll do it.
I ain't gonna do it today.
I won't.
But
I forgot about that.
however, it's funny. Every time I go back into the archives and start searching out something to bump, you know what the theme is, or the thing that seems to come up over and over and over again and never really gets a good answer?
What?
Tell you what, pay plans.
Oh,
There's I don't know how many threads there are on pay plans, but there's always questions around them, and they get lots of responses, but nobody ever has like a do this.
So David, could a deal? I mean, they could think about the data that you're able to provide, base a pay plan.
Oh yeah.
on not just your sales, but base it on the deflection rate.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Well, it's funny, you know, I watched a podcast earlier this week. You guys know Brian Benstock,
Mm-hmm.
and he had a gentleman who I've known, I guess, off and on for years, with Dave Spizak. And you know, Dave went back into his dealership days, and he was talking about, like, you know, his store was overperforming, you know, in the San Francisco area. And I'll paraphrase some of this, but he talked about his salespeople, and the thing that he was the most proud of was his, you know, his turnover was, I think, 1 year at 4%, which is the most unrealistic thing I've ever heard. But I trust that he's telling the truth. And he says, it wasn't like we weren't even the highest paid dealership on the street, let alone in the country. And he says it was really about, you know, being effective, keeping the people happy, all those things. And so then I go, okay, I hear you. And at the time he was doing everything he could within, you know, the data that he had. But if we use the idea that you just threw out, you could really lock in. I think you could really lock in your salespeople with a completely different type of pay plan that would get them focused on not churn and burn.
Well, not taking 100 ups just so you can make 20 sales, 30 sales, but really focusing on the long-term follow-up, which in return is going to make a better experience for the customer, which is a huge topic right now. How do we better the experience?
Right.
Yeah, we've got, I just spoke to a gentleman the other day with Absolute Results. It's a company that's been around 30, 40 years, matter of fact. And they do a lot of on-site sales. You know, when they bring in the whole team and basically help close, they'll put on the promotions and all that good stuff. But along with their service is a consulting to go along with it. So I was on the phone with him, and he was, you know, they want to write a few articles for Dealer Refresh and based all on customer experience. So, and we were talking about that. So it's interesting. So in this case study, I just brought up real quick on the screen here.
Yep.
I forgot that you guys had this up there. I need to go through this again. What's the quick lowdown on this?
Well, basically worked with a dealership and did the analysis for them, and started showing all of the blind spots that were happening at the dealership, things that they had no idea. Just like when we were looking at the salesperson performance, you had no idea. But we break it down into 4 buckets, and sales staff is one of them, geo is one of them, inventory is one of them, and then lead source is the last one. And what was interesting was that when we did this specific store, there were very telling things that, you know, they thought they knew, but this just validated, and they were able to make changes on their execution. One of them was certainly what they do with AutoHook and the execution of that, but it didn't stop there. It poured into what they were doing with digital advertising, what they were doing with their third-party lead buy, what they were doing with their operational process and their training. So, they pass this information along to the training organization that helps this dealership and their group. And so instead of a trainer, like a Brian Pasher or David Kane walking in and trying to figure out what the heck is going on, they could see it quickly, address the issues quickly. And so within a month or two in the case study, you'll see all of a sudden you'd see improvements in these other areas. And then they tweak a couple other things and they'd see improvements there. We're about to release 2 more case studies with similar greater results. And it's interesting. It never gets old, because 2 or 3 or 4 months, or just like, we'd look at the dealerships we had, when we were there, 50, 60 dealerships. There was like the bottom 5, and we wanted to really work with the bottom 5,
concentrate on those 5, and what could we do
and lift them up. And then there'd be maybe the next bottom 5, and all of a sudden what it did was it just lifted the whole group up. You do that at the dealership by doing these little things, and all of a sudden you still have the bottom issues that you're going to have month over month, but they change or they become better. And, the store is ultimately selling and performing at a much higher rate. It's cool.
Very cool.
It just makes all the execution more intentional, like, more specific, instead of, everybody uses the shotgun, kind of spray and pray analogies. This becomes a very, very specific sniper approach to all of the aspects that the performance of your dealership, is connected to.
We would only say shit on the wall and see what sticks.
Yep. You're right.
Well, and that's the same approach that, a salesperson that is taking 100 ups and only selling 20 cars, low hanging fruit.
Yep.
Low hanging fruit. So.
Yep, for sure. Well,
it's about 1:15. Let's bring this to a wrap. Unless, Alex, you have any more questions? David, anything else to add? It's been very insightful.
It's been fun to be with the two of you again, and thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.
For sure.
So viewers, if you're not already a part of Dealer Refresh community, you're just one of those lurkers, please sign up. We've got some great conversations going on, people asking questions. We've got something in here about attribution, which I know has always been a big topic with us, David. There's always something new. Ed Brooks, he put himself up to a nice little challenge. He's doing a video a day. He's talking, he's speaking on something related to automotive marketing, all that good stuff. So be sure to check out that thread or catch him on Facebook. That's been pretty fun. And then John Quinn, he just wrote an article, Was I Too Dumb for CRM? That's over on the blog and in the forums. Another great article to check out.
You had to hop on the phone with him yesterday after that one went up.
Oh, yeah?
Yep. Good old Quinn.
I love John Quinn. That's awesome. And that's a funny thing for him to say.
Yeah. Well, read the article. It's basically saying how smart he was.
Right.
Well, I already knew that because he told me.
Yeah. He was basically saying I am Mr. CRM. So no, it's a John Quinn-ish article for sure. It's fantastic.
Yeah, you haven't been to his Vermont house yet. He's got a mirror in his office, and it has I am CRM at the top of it. He just stares in it all day long.
Was that a gift from you?
Oh, hell no. He made that one himself. I'm just kidding. He doesn't have that. But I could totally see him having one, though.
I bet he does. So if you're a lurker, sign up. YouTube channel, be sure to subscribe. And of course, we're back here every Friday at 1 o'clock Eastern. So again, David, thanks for joining us, and we'll bring it to an end.
Thank you.
Thanks, David.
All right. Bye.